Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for joining us today for our daily English news edition. I'm Daniel Cook, your host, reading a translated version of today's top stories prepared by the Ora News journalistic team. The decriminalization law that was consensually adopted on December 17th has been receiving support from the international partners. Most recently, it was praised by the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, who made the following statement during his visit to Albania. I am personally impressed by the approval of legislation that will hamper criminals from being in politics. This is a very important and courageous step that Albania has taken, said Mr. Kerry. In a recent interview for Ora News, the chairman of the Commission for Decriminalization, Mr. Bylykbashi, clarified that the opposition and the majority are currently working on drafting the bylaws. Bylykbashi was confident that the bylaws would be finished by the end of February. The Albanian lawmakers are being trained by American experts who have offered both expertise and experience, but it remains to be seen whether there will be any further disagreement between the majority and the opposition, which might hinder the implementation of the law. Mr. Bylykbashi does not think there will be disagreements, but if there are, he says that they will probably have to do with the self-declaration form. Meanwhile, the Democrats have made it no secret that they doubt the majority's political will to implement the law. The Socialist Parliamentary Group held a meeting today on the subject of the justice reform, one day after Prime Minister Rama assured the U.S. Secretary of State that the constitutional changes will be adopted by the end of March. The chairman of the Ad Hoc Commission for Justice Reform, Fatmir Gjosha, reported at the meeting for about an hour and 15 minutes on the progress of the justice reform so far. Sources from the meeting have informed Ora News that Mr. Gjosha expressed the urgent need to reformat the justice system. According to him, the system is facing corruption at the highest levels, and that intervention must be made in order to win the battle. Mr. Gjosha said that the Ad Hoc Commission is waiting for the preliminary Venice recommendations after the 20th of February, especially concerning issues on which the opposition and the majority do not agree. The final Venice opinion is expected on March 12th. The Minister of Energy, Damian Gjiknuri, spoke after Gjosha's report. He announced that the work on the reform is going very well and that extraordinary work has been done so far. Our sources tell us that Prime Minister Rama was the last to speak at the meeting. He familiarized the Socialist Party group with the wide support the majority has received for the justice reform. He said that there is no time to lose in completing the reform, as it must be completed by the end of March. He once again praised the work of the Ad Hoc Commission and the chairman of the Commission for Justice Reform. The Minister of Integration, Gjosha, has asked the political parties to find consensus and to adopt the justice reform by the end of March. The minister was in Shkodra today with her counterpart from Montenegro and several EU representatives for the closure of a cross-border project worth €600,000. She gave the following address at the event. The justice reform is still the key for opening negotiations, and I hope that the reform will be finalized in the coming months, probably in March. I hope and urge the government to adopt this reform with full consensus in order to make it even more reliable for the Albanian citizens and for the internationals, said Minister Gjosha. She was supported by the Chief of Operations of the EU delegation in Albania. He made the following comments. A strategy must be approved by the Parliament for the justice reform. When the Parliament approves the draft, the European Commission will make an evaluation report, and in the end, it will decide whether it's the time for the opening of the negotiations. Regarding the political parties and their stances, we have only the confirmation that they do want this reform. I understand the impatience of the people, but the homework must be done, and the reforms must be implemented, he said. The Voice of America has quoted a U.S. State Department official saying that John Kerry used his visit to Albania to thank the government for resettling members of an Iranian opposition group called the Mujahedin, or MEK. The Voice of America writes the following. Over the past 2 years, Albania has taken on about 1,000 MEK members and has committed to resettling an additional 2,000, said senior State Department official. Just before Kerry's visit to Tirana on Sunday, the unnamed official said that Kerry would not speak publicly about the resettlement effort, which remains a sensitive issue. VOA reports that the U.S. has assisted Albania in its efforts to resettle the MEK, a group that supported the U.S. in the military operations in the Middle East and the fight against terrorism. According to the official from the State Department, the U.S. assistance included a donation of $20 million to the UN Refugee Agency to help resettle the MEK. The U.S. has also provided Albania with security and assistance in economic development to help the country build up its physical capacity to house the refugees. There is a new initiative being supported by the civil society to help provide electricity to the extremely poor. The Democratic MP Genti Bogdani has been a primary supporter of this initiative, which would make the first 150 kilowatts of electricity free for the poor in the winter months. In the summer months, the extremely poor would get the first 90 kilowatts for free. Mr. Bogdani presented the program to the Economic Commission today. According to him, the plan will benefit around 82,000 of Albania's neediest people. This will reduce the revenue of the energy distribution company by about 1.1 billion lek, or $9 million per year. Mr. Bogdani's presentation did not meet with immediate support from the Commission chairman. Mr. Brace responded that this is not the responsibility of the Economic Commission and that it should be presented to the Commission for Labor and Social Issues. The British company Crown Agents, which has been assisting the Customs Directorate for the past 2 years, has released information about how smuggling is done in Albania. More specifically, they have detailed how excise goods and fuel are being smuggled. Experts of the British company performed an audit of the activities of the Albanian fishing fleet. The company found that the vessels were being used for importing large quantities of duty-free fuel, coming from the ports of Italy, Montenegro, and Greece. The data obtained from the ports of Durrës, Vlora, Shëngjin, and Saranda showed that in the period between January 1st and March 12th of 2015, about 2 million liters of duty-free fuel entered Albania. The purchase price for this fuel was many times lower than that obtained from legitimate sources. According to Crown Agents, the clear risk indicators suggest that this fuel was smuggled in order to avoid taxes and sell fuel illegally in the Albanian market. The British company says that the evidence of this smuggling was reported to the Customs Directorate and that recommendations were given to strengthen the control over the fuel imports. A new directive was launched in July to force the owners of these fishing vessels to be registered as taxpayers, to submit a customs declaration, and to pay the VAT on any foreign duty-free fuel. The new rules also require that the imported fuel for fishing vessels should be marked in order to facilitate the identification of duty-free status. When asked about this issue, official sources at the Ministry of Finance say that they are aware of the facts, but the department cannot comment on this issue at this time because a committee has been set up to assess the activities and findings of Crown Agents. The municipality of Tirana has announced the construction of a new playground for children at the artificial lake area. Tirana's mayor Erion Veliaj spoke about the new park today, saying that no trees are going to be cut down in order to make room for the project. In fact, he says 3,000 new trees are going to be planted. The mayor announced that the work on the playground has already begun. We will be moving 3 trees, he said, and planting 3,000 others. There will be areas for rock climbing, ping pong, and basketball. Tirana has been waiting for this playground for years, said Mr. Veliaj. That's all of our news for this evening. Thanks for watching, and please join us again tomorrow at the same time. Have a great night.